Well, joining us here in the studio is Alexandru Hudistanu, a military defence analyst and a retired Romanian naval officer. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Tom.
First of all, what we're seeing here with these, I guess, continued attacks on Gulf countries over the last couple of days, is this going to be part of the new normal, or is the ceasefire potentially falling over completely now?
Well, I certainly hope not. I hope it will not be the new normal for us living in the region. It's just that it shows that Iran only has one strategy at this point. It's this one-trick pony strategy, and this is not necessarily the hallmark of a strong military. It's actually the hallmark of a military with no option. The only strategy that Iran has applied throughout this conflict consistently was this random retaliation at regional countries with no objection whatsoever from the part of Iran regarding the sovereignty of the states here in the region, trying always to blame it on the US and on the US presence in the region, as if this is something that Iran should decide for the region. I mean, the region is sovereign, the countries are sovereign, they can do their own work and decisions. I think this should not be something that Iran can, let's say, have a strong say in it. This just shows this type of hegemonic type behavior from Iran that Iran is trying to amass and try to normalize to some extent. But we see the region is always pushing back in order to not normalize, to not create this as the new normal. And that's I would dare to say, the response we have seen consistently from the region. As I said, this is just the strategy of Iran. It shows to be a one-trick pony. The cat is out of the bag. The region knows exactly how Iran is going to behave in this situation. US is also knowing that. So I'm pretty sure at this point, plans or at least assessments are in order to try to circumvent this type of attacks.
Yeah.
Lashes out, basically.
Okay, I want to bring in Ali Akbar-Darini. He's a researcher at the Centre for Strategic Studies. He joins us from Tehran. Thanks very much for being with us, Mr. Darini. Can you just explain, from an Iranian point of view, why Iran continues carrying out these attacks on sovereign countries? Why Kuwait and Bahrain here?
Why Kuwait and Bahrain are hosting US military bases that are used to wage war against Iran. Iran is responding to US violations of the ceasefire. First, effectively, the ceasefire has collapsed. Iran has made a new decision as of last week. It cannot tolerate US violations because US violations of the ceasefire point to a deliberate pattern. And that deliberate pattern is aimed at undermining and hitting Iran, the infrastructure of Iran that is managing the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran has made a strategic decision to expand its retaliation against US violations of the ceasefire to include the infrastructure in Arab states. Contrary to what your guest said, it's not random attack against Kuwait or Bahrain. This is a very calculated, precise retaliation against US military infrastructure in the states that are hosting US military bases.
Okay. Alexandru, what do you make of that? That we're hearing there from Mr. Darini that the ceasefire is effectively collapsed, and these attacks seemingly are going to continue.
First of all, this ceasefire was never necessarily understood as a established understanding. It was more or less a gentleman's agreement, so an unspoken ceasefire. And it's not necessarily unheard of that during ceasefire this type of skirmishes still occur, and we've seen that US has restricted all these skirmishes to the maritime domain, and especially in relation to the Strait of Hormuz. That is to also counter the general idea that this is the new normal, and to counter the general idea that Iran has a monolithic control on the Strait of Hormuz. We see this type of freedom of navigation operation. We have seen those through the Project Freedom in the span of 1 day or so. Then we have seen this type of passing through the strait. Even now, Iran has said that they have retaliated in the let's say in the echo of US trying to push a few ships through the strait and so on. So that being said, I will say this: the proofs regarding the attacks that Iran is doing in the region are not necessarily supporting the affirmation of our guest. I don't think the airport in Kuwait is a military infrastructure whatsoever, and I think that person that died, that Indian citizen that died, I think he's not part of the war for sure in any way and means. So we see that there are retaliations, and I would dare to say these are in frustration of the fact that the length of the military arm of Iran cannot actually reach proper US. And more so, if we are to believe the reports that Iran is trying to push and the narrative that Iran is trying to construct, which other bases? They said they have destroyed all the bases in the region so far. So which other bases are they attacking now, if that's the case? So it's clear there's this type of construction of a narrative in which Iran is trying to play the victim, but the longer the time passes, in which each of these retaliation that don't show any form of let's say, justification, that image breaks down. The veneer falls off and the victim proves to be the abuser.
Okay. Mr. Darini, where does this leave negotiations then? Is there any desire from the Iranians' point of view to try and get some sort of lasting deal?
Before that, let me respond to your esteemed guest. Iran did not attack the Kuwait airport. Iran did target US military targets inside Kuwait, and Iran's drones hit those targets at night. But the drone that hit the terminal at Kuwait airport was a Lucas drone, American drone, and it happened during the day. So he needs to correct his information. On the talks and a deal, Iran and the United States got close to a deal, the draft deal they agreed to, but the Americans walked back from that deal. And the Americans now are deliberately refusing to finalize the deal, hoping to use this nominal ceasefire as an opportunity to weaken Iran's leverage at the negotiating table. Iran has decided that this cannot continue. The ceasefire has collapsed, and Iran has decided to respond disproportionately to US violations of the ceasefire.
Right. Okay. Clearly very different narratives here. Thank you so much. We'll leave it there for the moment. That is Ali Akbar Darini, researcher at the Centre for Strategic Studies, as well as Alexandru Hudistanu, military defence analyst. Thanks so much for joining us.